Sham Charania.
Yeah,
Shams, kick him off the tour. Why'd we end up with just a fine? Because our source says, who did not want to be named, told us yesterday this is probably going to be a fine. We reported that yesterday, but some people thought it was a suspension coming. Ends up just being a fine. How'd we get here, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I had to confirm you guys on that news. Substantial fine, $100,000. I mean, listen, I think you said it right there. Jamal Murray, not necessarily known as someone who's got a rap sheet, not necessarily someone that's known to have a history of doing this. Even the referees, from what I'm told, they felt even after the game, even after reviewing the footage of the heat pad at one point, the towel at one point being thrown at them, they felt like Jamal Murray did it out of frustration. He's dealing with a calf injury. There were a couple plays during that game where he felt like he was fouled. He should have gotten a call. Mike Malone, we saw him come out on the court, and the fact that the referees didn't even give him a technical or eject him, and the referee said after the game, even if he threw that at us, we would have just given him a technical foul. We wouldn't even have ejected him. So I think you put all those factors in play, and the league, Pat, in the NBA, they have conversations with the players. They have conversations with the referees before they make a judgment on whether it's a suspension, whether it's a fine.
Yeah, what about journalists?
Spoke to Jamal Murray.
They talk to journalists?
Good question.
Well, I'm talking to people. Me personally,
you're talking to them.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I'm in the weeds on it, but they spoke to Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray showed a level of contrition. He understood. He took some responsibility of the heat of the moment, how frustrated he was, and fortunately, no one did get hurt. Fortunately, Jamal Murray's aim, whether if he was aiming it out of frustration, it literally hit the ground both times. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't impact anyone. So I'm sure that played a part, that no one was injured, no one was hurt. But listen, Jamal Murray, and this to me is a microcosm of this entire series. Minnesota, Anthony Edwards, these guys are dogs. They're bringing it bringing it to them. Like they're punching them in the mouth every game, and they're making them. Not really. Yeah. They're putting them into so much frustration right now. It's palpable. We saw it on Jamal Murray. But Game 3 is Friday, and Jamal Murray will be in action.
They're not actually punching him in the mouth, which leads to the whole NFL, NBA conversation that's been taking place. But that Timberwolves defense has been locked down on old Jamal Murray from what we've seen, and obviously frustration grows. I'm happy nobody's suspended, especially in the biggest games of the year, having a star out. That leaves an asterisk for everything. I don't know why everybody is so suspension hungry for people, especially if the people involved are cool with it not happening. But I guess what those folks are worried about is obviously the world, mostly. Mm-hmm. But they don't want this to become a thing, right? Nobody wants this to become a pattern, and we're not assuming that this will be the case.
Yeah, no one wants this to be a thing, and there has been precedent when players. I remember Udonis Haslem through his mouth guard at an official in 2006. He got suspended one game, but Jamal Murray has no history of this. He has no history, no rap sheet. He's got no past as far as demonstrative actions toward an official. So history plays a role in this, right? And Draymond Green has been suspended for games based on history. And I saw Draymond Green came out and made a pretty good statement as far as the first thing everyone rushed to when this happened with Jamal Murray is why not suspend him? But let's look at the situation, talk to the referees, talk to the player, talk to the people involved. And at the end of the day, Joe Dumars, the people at the league office, they make a recommendation. Adam Silver, they all huddle and they talk about it. And then their decision was to fine Jamal Murray. I mean, $100,000 is a pretty sizable fine for the NBA. And they gave it to him, and now he's going to learn. I don't think anyone expects Jamal Murray to be throwing heat packs or heat pads on the floor anytime soon.
How does the NBA pay structure work with playoffs? Like for the NFL, you get your contract through 18 weeks. I guess there's some teams that pay year-round. That is not what I've ever heard. But 18 weeks, you get your contract. So a massive check. Game check's a big deal. It's talked about, like, would you put a game check on it? Because it's huge, obviously. Then playoffs, everybody is paid the exact same thing. So you got a lot of star players taking massive pay cuts, and then you got a lot of young guys getting a massive pay grade or upgrade, So how does it work in the NBA? Are they making their same checks from the regular season, like $100,000? Is he just playing for free for the next couple games? Is there a set way of how they pay during the playoffs over there?
So every player in the regular season, their deals over the course of the entire calendar year, it's based on however the player's contract is. There are some players, Pat, that get 80%, 50%, 60% of their entire salary in one lump sum in a month, whatever the case may be. I remember a few years ago, Ben Simmons, his check, he was getting 50% of his check on 2 different dates. At one point, players have that in their contract. But in the playoffs, there's something called playoff bonuses, right? So depending on how far you advance, if you get to the finals, if you win the championship, and so there's always playoff bonuses, playoff shares. Sometimes for players that make so much money, the playoff share is so nominal in terms of their full salary that I've heard of guys donate their salaries to their players or staffers, their teammates, and things like that. That's how nominal some of those playoff shares are. But it is a good amount for players that are on the bench. Back of the bench, those playoff bonuses do hit big.
Okay, so it's not really even a discussion. Like the NBA is not paying everybody. Like the NFL pays, I think, for the playoffs, everybody. Now, the NFL is making out like bandits because the amount of money that they're making off these playoff games versus what they're paying everybody. But it's just, in the NFL, it's all just become like, yep, that's how it works. And if you make the Super Bowl, I think when I went there, it was like an extra maybe 170,000 or 250,000. I forget what exactly it was. So a lot of teams are like, hey, another week's another check. Another week's another check, and the check gets bigger and bigger. NBA, it doesn't sound like that's the case unless you negotiate in there. Now, let's talk about the playoffs in the NBA. Ty has a question for you, Shams.
Yeah, Shams, I know the other night the Knicks and Pacers, came down to the wire, was pretty solid. But for the most part, the playoffs have absolutely stunk thus far. A lot of blowouts, not very many close games. Why do you think that is? Like, we heard going into the playoffs, right from round one, it was like, hey, no one can compete with the Celtics. They're just going to beat the shit out of everybody. And on the other side, it was kind of the Nuggets, and the T-Wolves have obviously taken it to them. But why is there, like, no parity whatsoever? It seems like the better teams are just winning, and they're doing it handedly, and these games are basically over with, in the third quarter.
Well, in the Eastern Conference, I think that's definitely been the case. And I think, you have to give a lot of credit. I do think the Philly New York series, I think that was an exciting series, even though it ended in 6 games. I think that was an exciting, or 5 games. It was an exciting series overall. There were highlight moments, but listen, out east, I mean, it's tough. I mean, the Orlando Cleveland series, that wasn't something that was even, I think people around the league were focused on until it got to a game 7, and that game was so low scoring. But to me, the Western Conference is where it's at. Like, even seeing the rise of Anthony Edwards and how Minnesota played Phoenix, and Phoenix has got their 3 stars, and seeing the way Anthony Edwards went in there and just absolutely dominated that series, and now the run that he's on against Denver and the reigning champions, like, that's nothing to sneeze at. I think the Clippers-Mavericks series was great, even though Kawhi Leonard was out.
Sneezing at it,
and listen,
beating the piss out of everybody.
20, but these are good storylines for the teams that are winning, obviously.
Right.
Oh, yeah. But the games are kind of...
Last night was tough. Oklahoma City, Dallas. I do expect more out of that series. I think that series will have a chance to go 6 or 7 games. I do think Dallas, the way they're playing, Luka Doncic last night, 6 of 19, very similar to the way they started out that Clippers series. Lose game 1, feel that series out.
Kyrie
we'll see what happens in game 2.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that series has some potential as well. And then we'll see. Like, if Denver wins game 3, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could make a comeback as well. They are the reigning champs.
Okay, so we could be having a 7-game series story as opposed to each individual game story.
But the Eastern Conference, I can't speak for the Eastern Conference. I can't speak for Boston.
Well, you didn't even tell us that the Cavs and Orlando Magic were even playing.
Didn't even know.
So we didn't even know until Game 7 happened. It was like, wait a minute. I love Spider Mitchell. I love that they did the Yeet thing during halftime.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they were in the damn tournament. I had no idea those games were happening.
Well, I get it, but also isn't part of the problem, like, just because it goes 7 games doesn't necessarily mean it's a good series. Like, if one team is just winning by 20 points every game and then they get down to a game 7, it's not just like, oh boy, we got a game 7. It's like, well, yeah, the series as a whole, though, has stunk.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some dominating performances. Kyrie will wake up at some point, we think.
I hope so.
No doubt.
And then we think Joker is going to wake up, even though it seems like the Timberwolves are okay with stepping on people to sleep. I mean, let's go basketball.
Shout out Jaden McDaniels. Remember, we were talking about his extension
I killed him.
back in October. We got to give him his flowers. He's locking up 94 feet.
I love that. I like good defense right now in the NBA. Quick question about, the story of the NBA instead of the blowouts in the playoffs. Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Sugar Shams, do you think that you could cover the NFL? Or are you strictly an NBA insider? Do you think you have what it takes to cover the NFL, be an NFL insider too?
You mentally tough enough?
I listen. I'm gonna let the Ian Rappaports of the world do their thing. I ventured down that lane a few times.
Broke news.
What I didn't realize last year during the draft is I think I put out the number 3 pick.
Yep.
And what I didn't realize is you can make it like the trades happen in real time in the NFL draft, right? So like the trade happens and the guy will go on stage with the hat on. That doesn't happen in the NBA. So, there's a little bit of an adjustment period. I think there's some lessons that need to be learned when it comes from NBA, NFL crossover that I've experienced. But could I? I mean,
You NBA folks are so arrogant.
It's
You
ridiculous.
think you can do
I don't see why
everything.
not. Okay. I know Austin a little bit. I saw his comments.
awesome.
I covered him as a player.
I love him.
I covered him as a player. I think the point, it's an interesting point. What we hear is you hear about NFL players or players that are growing. Like what I hear a lot when I talk to NBA players, they spoke about how they used to play football a lot growing up, and then they switched sports because of the safety, because of how difficult it was, because of
physicality.
Tough.
the physicality of the sport is just next level.
Much
Like
work.
it is legitimately apples and oranges. It's a whole nother beast. It's a whole nother animal. Guys transfer over to the other sport and play basketball. So given that, like I don't hear about basketball. I mean, you guys, that's your thing. How many NFL players played basketball, were better at basketball, and then switched over to the NFL? Were there any?
I don't know.
Oh, there were a lot.
Literally, I watch. All we get to see is highlights.
I know Antonio Gates played.
Julius
like the
Peppers.
Nate Robinsons of the world.
Eric Swope played basketball.
James of the world. Like these guys played football, but then they eventually fully focused their attention on basketball. For
Charlie
reasons.
Ward
I mean,
was one of the highest.
safety is a big.
That might be the greatest argument that the NBA could have is that there have been college basketball players go play in the NFL, but have there ever been NCAA D1 football players go play in the NBA?
Charlie Ward.
It's hard.
Boom. Okay.
Heisman.
Well,
went
and
had a
also,
long career.
I think
Sham, who would you pick right now that could go and play in the NFL that's in the NBA?
That's a great question.
No goddamn
Had a
right
baby
right
back.
now.
Had a baby back. Had a baby back.
Zion.
Yep.
I mean, Zion is a athletic,
Yep.
physical
Imagine him.
specimen.
I mean, he would.
See, but the
They
thing
would pay
is,
him.
he's got the
De'Aaron
size.
Fox.
Pass, right?
He's got the frame. He's got
technique, yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
De'Aaron
Just
Fox.
pull it up.
Wide receiver. I could see him wide receiver, cornerback.
He's got wheels.
He's fast as hell. He's got wheels.
I think Anthony
he's fast.
Edwards could play.
Yeah.
You just put him somewhere. Hey, this is what you're going to play.
His baseball quote.
I think he would figure
can see
it out.
that.
Yeah, I enjoy the chatter just because we get a chance to talk about how athletic all of our professional athletes are, because there's freaks that are out there, and there's one of them. There is one of them.
Oh, that ball was definitely deflated before this photo.
No, that was fully. That's why he'd be great tackle. Anyways, we appreciate the hell out of you, Shams. We'll continue to chat with you. Hopefully through the playoffs. You're the man. Keep it going.
Appreciate y'all. And by the way, we are getting bangers.
Next round.
One after the other. I'm talking about the beef. I'm talking about.
Oh.
Oh yeah. Well, that one
over.
seems to be.
Yeah, that's
Kaput.
Shooting,
finito.
yeah.
Bow
I'm
on that one.
talking about the songs.
Yeah, banger. You're talking about the drive-by shooting too.
Was that you?
Way to make fun of it, Sean. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Charania. Yeah.
Hope he's
Okay, Sean. Hope you're happy. Better have an alibi.
Oh, you was talking about Sheamus.
Yeah, banger after banger.
Banger.
All